Hello, and welcome back to the Fae Banner Review, where we talk about Fae adding things into the game no one wanted or asked for. You might find the presentation of this video to be somewhat different this time around. Unfortunately, I've used up the video budget on the last video that you should totally watch after this video, but rest assured, it won't impede on the banner review. Today, we have a brand new mythic banner featuring Ayduldoro, who was the most expected mythic choice this time around. She was also the most dreaded choice, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. And as per tradition, I will be using this coveted small line graph that may or may not be small at the end of the day to rank the brand new mythic banner, as well as the circle graph that may or may not be a circle at the end of the day alongside it. Today's rankings will be based on the number of times she appeared in the story before getting added. And if you want the number of awesome videos in your day-to-day life to increase, then make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, I'd really appreciate it. The next mythic we have this time around is Ayduldoro, and she's an anima mythic. We didn't really have many details beyond her initial PRF in the story, but everyone was dreading her inevitable release because it gave out a really obscene status effect. And I have the pleasure of announcing that her PRF remains intact here. We are not making it to book 10 with this one, folks. Let's see. Ayduldoro comes with Mystic Galahorn, which is a slaying blue tome that grants a special jump of 1 to herself at the start of the turn, inflicts -5 attack, defense, and res, as well as dull to those stats to any foe within 3 rows and columns of her during combat. She inflicts a bunch of attack and res penalties on the foe during her own combat, gets upwards of 25 true damage and 15 true damage reduction based on the amount of allies within 3 rows and columns of her. She gets 7 HP after combat, and at the start of the enemy phase while defending in Aether Raids, she grants Foresight Snare to the allies that are closest to the bottom of the map within 3 columns of her, or, when not defending in Aether Raids, she grants the status to the highest defense ally closest to the foe. And Foresight Snare is a status that completely cancels out a foe's action if they initiate combat onto a unit with the status active, ends it entirely, inflicts isolation on them, and the flash status. Every time you think they couldn't come up with worse things for the game, they will prove you wrong over and over and over again. This is definitely the most anti-gameplay thing Fae has ever introduced into the game, and believe me, that's saying a lot because they dropped auto affinity battles less than 2 years ago. I don't understand why they even decided to make this in the first place. We've had end turn effects like Sather and Leon already, the latter peaking in stupidity at one point. I figured they would be done messing around with this type of stuff because of it, but I guess not, because we've evolved from needing to take an action to end a foe's action to just existing. You can't even engage on a unit with this status active. Wait a minute, engage? This sucks, but fret not, my dear viewers, for you see, I have the foresight to help you get through these troubling times. In Summoner Duels, you could use 2 limited time units to remove the status from her team in Summer Thor and Mythic Loki. But some of you may not have either of them, thus not being able to counter Ayduldoro whatsoever, which is why I have prepared an alternative procedure that any player at any level can do. Also, that's specifically for Summoner Duels. And Aether Raids? Well, good luck with that one, bud. It's Lin Ring at best if you still want to player phase and remove the status, which isn't actually the worst idea. Also, it doesn't seem to work against saviors either unless you directly target them, so I think you should have free reign to attack that way, assuming they don't have the status themselves. Although if you'd rather not attempt it at that point, then you could just enemy phase a Ayduldoro team. The status doesn't do anything if you don't initiate, right? Also, off topic, but they updated the weapon from the original so that it could spread to multiple allies much more easily on Aether Raid's defense, whereas it would only go to 1 unit at most prior to this. They really want it to work as much as possible. You can also run her on Dark Season too, because she doesn't have the same limitations that Baldur and Helther do, which is really funny and terrifying. Mostly terrifying. Thankfully, that's just for Aether Raid stuff. If you tried giving out the status to multiple allies in other parts of the game, then it'd be a lot harder to do. Unless you have Citrine. The clause states that it can only be given out to 1 ally with the highest defense, but also within the clause of being closest to the foe. So in my mind, it really could be anyone as long as they are the closest unit regardless. They don't even have to have a good defense stat realistically. It just seems like more of an insurance thing if multiple allies are the closest. So you could theoretically give out a team-wide shield that way with Citrine. But it is worth mentioning that it does cancel out the entire status across the team once it goes off on 1 unit. But imagine having an entire team-wide shield for 1 action. That'd be pretty funny and terrifying. mostly funny. Honestly, the main takeaway from this entire thing is that if you see a Heimdallr team in the wild, you probably shouldn't engage with them. Wait a minute, engage? Heimdallr is probably going to encourage more enemy phasing in Astra season since the status doesn't really do much of anything if no one initiates. And that should be fine to do as long as there isn't something that can punish enemy phasing pretty hard, but we don't really have anyone like that at the moment. Heimdallr also comes with a PRFB slot in an open book that grants cancel remaining minimum of 1, inflicts exposure, discord, and stall on foes with less res than her, and that are within 2 spaces of another foe at the start of the player phase or enemy phase. It inflicts -5 attack and res on the foe during combat, follow-up denial, guard, grants 20% res-based true damage and true damage reduction, and a special jump of 1 before her first attack. It's good, yeah, sure, I guess. It's basically just Havoc, but it inflicts more stuff and grants more things, so it's not really like Havoc, but kinda sorta is, mostly with how the penalties spread. So all of that combined with the end turn status basically means you can hyper punish a lot of high threat range player phase teams. Cancelled actions, isolation, flash, stall, exposure, and discord is really obnoxious, but even without her PRFB slot, she's still going to be really annoying to deal with in general. Foresight Snare is just that insane. Although her combat capabilities overall don't seem to be that bad, question mark? She has easy means of charging specials, a bunch of true damage, and decent enough range so she could probably snipe a unit or two at times. Like, look at her beating a green armor unit. Are you going to tell me that's not impressive? It's not impressive. Honestly, I guess it just depends on how often she'll need to enter combat, but she's going to be annoying regardless. She's definitely support first, but she might be able to contribute in other ways at the very least. Although maybe I've lost the plot at this point if I see a B slot with 10 effects in it and say it doesn't do it for me these days. Maybe her other skills will pick up the slack. And speaking of which, Heimdallr also comes with a bunch of inheritable skills, including Ice Wall, Attack Res Area, and a brand new, not really new, C-slot in Attack Res Hone Assault that grants 6 visible attack and res, as well as the 50% damage reduction piercing status to herself and allies within 2 spaces at the start of the turn, and it grants upwards of 5 additional attack and res to the unit during combat based on the amount of allies with the status active. Yep, that sure is Attack Res Hone Assault, I guess. It's like Insight Hone and Outcry Dolt, but damage reduction piercing, except not like Outcry Dolt since it also grants true damage, but still like Insight Hone because it doesn't grant true damage. Why is Outcry the only one of the 3 that gets true damage? It's not a bad skill, even with a lot of units hyper-focusing on true damage reduction these days. It can come up at times from those that also have pierceable damage reduction in their kit, and there are some that do. The new Ryoma, Freya, Rhea, etc. It's definitely a decent filler C-slot for cavalry, but I can't imagine you'll be foddering her in most cases. Nothing she has is too amazing or is suitable for some units due to the res-leaning aspect, barring the C-slot, and in that aspect, it is great because it means there's no incentive to get rid of her. And in that aspect, it's bad because I'd rather people fodder her than use her. Why couldn't she have better fodder, IS? Still, it's not like you wouldn't be able to find use for multiple copies if it came down to it. Assuming you even get a single copy of her, that is. And what's a Heimdallr banner without a Heimdallr color share? And some other units too, yeah, sure, whatever, yeah, it's fine. Heimdallr is sharing with Hother and Mr. Momentum himself. Hother is extremely valuable to have if you don't already own her since she can nerf the safety fence. Honestly, she's probably more worthwhile to get over Heimdallr in this case if you had to choose between the two for Aetherite's defense. Definitely a must-grab mythic at the moment. And blue guy over there is still him, I guess. Gromel definitely gave him a bit more life because now he could actually deal damage in combat again. But combat aside, his fodder is still pretty nice if you end up getting duplicates. There's also red with Baldur, Emblemike, and Duomarth. Baldur is just the same thing as Hother, but red, so I'm gonna copy and paste what I said like 20 seconds ago. Baldur is extremely valuable to have if you don't already own Baldur, since Baldur can nerf the safety fence. Honestly, Baldur probably more worthwhile to get over Heimdallr in this case if you had to choose between the two for Aetherite's defense. Definitely a must-grab mythic at the moment. Meanwhile, Duomarth is still excellent on the support side of things. His combat isn't as great these days, but it's far from bad, still making for a pretty decent magic save. He's a nice unit to have if you don't already own him. And Emblemike. Well, I don't know how many people don't own him at this point, but it's fine if you don't have him, I guess. Fodder-wise, not so much though. There's also the colorless share with Eikthenir, Legendary Sakura, and Emblem Micaiah. Eikthenir isn't as good these days, but he could probably still do okay as an Astra Mythic if need be. If nothing else, he has, nothing else. Legendary Sakura and Emblem Micaiah are definitely carrying the share pretty hard here. Sakura is still obscenely broken support, and she has very easy fodder to pass around for any healer. Micaiah is also still a great cleanser and action economy unit, and her ring is still really nice to pass around for all sorts of stuff. Definitely a good emblem unit to grab if you don't already own her. And last, there's Green with Haythrun, Melia, and Attuned Leaf. Haythrun is still a pretty decent 8th rated defense mythic, but she's not someone you ought to go out of your way for at this point. Unlike the other two green units that, they have pretty decent... Well, at least they can. And overall, the banner shares could have been a lot worse. It's not the most amazing banner ever, but it does have nice stuff on it, at least. That said, it seems like after this end of the month banner, it's only going to go up from here. And now that we've gone over the brand new mythic unit, I think it's time we rank the banner on the small line graph that may or may not be small at the end of the day. And would you look at that? The brand new mythic banner has earned a 2 out of 10 on the small line graph. And based on my understanding of the banner, I believe that it would be best fit somewhere around this area of the circle graph. She's clearly strong, and it's surprisingly easy enough to see why given the lack of paragraphs in her kit. I don't know what I would have done if she was any stronger than she currently is. And you may be wondering to yourself, should I ruin everyone else's day by having them fight my Heimdallr? And while the funny in me thinks it would be a great idea to do so, it would be a great idea to do so. Heimdallr is obscenely stupid as a unit, like room temperature IQ stupid. Wait, that said, I have to wonder how much mileage most people will get out of her in general. Throwing her on a defense team is going to make it a lot more difficult for people to beat, but outside of that in summoner duels, I have to wonder if that's enough to incentivize many people to grab her. Still, I don't think most people would regret grabbing a copy, but you could argue it's more worthwhile to use those orbs for more splashable units. The Halloween banner is still around, and it has a dancer that gives out reflex and Kanto refresh, which is incredibly useful in all aspects of the game, not to mention everything else on the banner between another broken unit and some decent fodder here and there. There's also the Tellius banner. It's mid. It's kind of what I expected the banner to turn out like, considering most of the units here aren't exactly standoutish. That said, the double color share is fantastic on the basis of pure quantity. They all have a really solid fodder to boot if that interests you more. The Ninja banner is also coming out really soon. I think less than a week after the Heimdallr banner comes out too. It's worth waiting to see what that offers, even if you were planning on getting Heimdallr anyway. Those banners tend to be extremely good. But other than that, there's not really a lot of reasons not to go for Heimdallr. Her end turn effect on top of her other support is extremely nuts, and I don't see how this unit ages out anytime soon, TBH. 2BH. To be quite H. I can honestly just hope people don't have the orbs to get her at the moment, so I won't have to deal with her too much.